People have been asking me why I hate the royal family, and it's pretty simple. They're racist. They had a chance to prove that they were not racist by welcoming a biracial daughter-in-law and sister-in-law to the royal family, and they couldn't even do that. And the reason is really stupid. The reason is because Meghan was more popular, getting more press than they were. And so their jealousy and their pettiness ignited, and they went full racist. They are also super lazy. They should be doing way more to earn their billions of taxpayer-funded dollars, and they don't do much of anything except for wear tiaras and show up and cut some ribbons sometimes. I am American, and I can still see your news, and I can still read Old English. God forbid an American can see things with their eyes, and I think it's stupid that you guys are paying for this family to do nothing but be petty bitches to each other. And also, they are harboring a PDF file. And by the way, I do a lot of videos about what's happening here, so it's not like I'm ignoring it. Okay? Okay. Those are my reasons. You don't have to like them, but that's what they are.
But I think it's absolutely true that she got absolutely an unfair treatment by the press compared to Kate. I mean, Kate was never accused of, causing drought and murder in Mexico because she liked avocados. So I think she's making a general point. That's the Mail. That was the Mail. I think it's the Mail, not the Mail on Sunday. Is Meghan's favourite snack fueling drought and murder? The Mail also said, in the early days, Harry's girl is straight out of Compton. I think the point she's making, and she talks about this in her interview, and the point she's making is that she did feel she got unfair treatment. OK, she might be slight exaggeration that the paps are out there outside every day, but it's like saying there's lots of traffic in London. I don't mean there's traffic every day, but there's traffic Sunday. So look, but the point is, I think she was treated unfairly by the press. The fact that she's done this interview, she's ended on the front of the Daily Mail. But the Daily Mail is saying, I wish she'd go away. It's quite interesting.
She's ended up on many front pages. Look, I think it's, if you read that interview beginning to end, I think it's a bit weird. Who buys an £11 million house having only looked around the garden?
It was the palm trees,
The
Andrew.
palm trees she saw.
Blind palm trees. That's why, can I just say, but when they looked round the house, they spotted two palm trees joined together. Harry said, "My love, it's us." When Archie goes past them, he says, "Hi, Mama, hi, Papa." I mean, who couldn't fail to be moved?
And so
hard-hearted Andrew Pierce is not moved
Jackie,
by this.
Would you walk round a house and just look at the garden and buy it, particularly when it costs £10.5 million?
No, and I wouldn't buy a house worth
That's
that much,
not true, because they said when they started looking for property, this property kept on coming up, and they avoided it, and eventually they went to see it.
So episode 2 of Harry and Meghan is mostly about Meghan, and the topic she talked about with Mariah Carey on her podcast about not being treated as a Black woman until she got with her husband came up again. A lot of people came for her about that because they felt like she was equating the Black experience with suffering and like overt racism, but I don't think that's not what she was doing. I hope that in the context of the documentary, it makes more sense and people are able to sit with it more and understand what exactly she was saying. Because to me, she didn't sound any different than I think any person of color would sound if they went from knowing like racism exists, but never actually experiencing overt racism to experiencing it all the time. She was acknowledging the fact that she presents to the world as a white woman, so then people treat her as such. She never denied or tried to hide the fact that she's a Black biracial person, but because people don't walk around introducing themselves like, "Hello, I'm Meghan Markle and I am a Black biracial woman," people don't know that about her unless they are offered that information. I mean, like, we know because, I know my people when I see my people, right? But white people can't always tell, right? Because you even hear her agent talk about how he thought she was just like some sun-kissed California white woman until he found out. She was being perceived by white people as another white person and being treated as such. Whether or not they changed their tune when they found out she was biracial is a different story, right? She knows what privileges come with her appearance and how she's perceived. She's not stupid. She's always been open about being biracial. I don't know where people get this idea that she's been running through the world trying to pass as a white woman comes from, but whatever. Until she got with her husband, that overt racism that she saw her mother get put through and other women of color get put through, she never experienced firsthand. Because at first glance, people who might be racist towards her thought she was one of them. Now, because she's like one of the most famous people in the world, people know from jump that she's not a Caucasian woman and she's a black biracial woman. Now, all that overt, direct racism that her appearance like kind of protected her from, I guess, she's now experiencing all of that firsthand. I'm not saying that these two things go hand in hand, right? She's saying she's now experiencing the type of racism towards Black women firsthand that she only had secondhand knowledge of. A friend of mine is Middle Eastern and Muslim, but she's very fair-skinned, so she presents to the world as a Caucasian woman, right? How she looked kind of shielded her from the kind of treatment that her darker-skinned family members or people who wore the hijab were getting, right? But then she started wearing hijab and she said something similar to Meghan. It changed up on her quick and she was like, well, damn.
Ever wonder why royalists call Meghan Sussex fans sugars? Oh, it's not random. It's not sweet. It is racist. And here's the truth they don't want you to know. Thank you to my mutual for shedding some light, because I've been wondering for a very long time. And I was today years old when I found out. Online, Meghan's supporters, especially Black women, get called sugars. It sounds harmless, maybe even silly. But in royalist and anti-Meghan spaces, it's a code word, a dog whistle. The word has roots in slavery. Enslaved Africans were forced to work brutal hours on sugarcane plantations in the Caribbean. And sugar became a slur used to dehumanize them, because they were seen as extensions of the products they were forced to make. Today, racists use it as a substitute for the N-word, especially when talking about Black Meghan fans. So don't tell me the hate isn't rooted in racism. This isn't just petty name-calling, it's deliberate. When they say sugar, they are calling you the N-word without saying it loud. They think it's clever, it's actually disgusting. Let's be clear, racism evolves. It hides behind language. And just because it's subtle, it doesn't make it less dangerous. So when people say the Meghan hate isn't about race, this proves otherwise. The language is racial, the insults are racial, the pattern is racial. The British press and the royalist trolls, they've tried to make racism palatable. Sugar is one of their tools. If you're against racism, you can't ignore how these words are used to dehumanize Black voices, especially when they dare to support someone like Meghan. So yeah, sugar isn't cute. It's a cover for something much uglier, and it needs to be called out.
Can somebody answer me this? Why is it so hard for some people to stay on the actual question? Harry and Meghan have been saying for years that there were racial issues surrounding their experience inside the royal institution. That's the conversation they put on the table. But watch what happens every single time. The second someone brings it up, boom, somebody starts talking about Montecito. Then it's the size of their house. Then it's Netflix. Then it's Spotify. Then it's, well, they have palm trees. Palm trees? What have palm trees got to do with the question? It's like asking someone, did you eat my lunch? And they reply, well, your shoes are untied. Bro, answer the question. That's exactly how some of these debates feel. The conversation keeps taking exits like it's terrified of reaching the destination. And regular people notice this stuff. You don't have to be a royal expert. You don't need a history degree. You just need common sense. If someone raises a serious issue, the normal thing to do is deal with that issue. Not start talking about real estate, not count bedrooms, not calculate property values. Imagine telling your friend, someone at work treated me unfairly, and instead of listening, they say, yeah, but your car is pretty nice. What? How are those two things connected? They're not. That's why people get frustrated. It starts looking less like a discussion and more like a distraction. And here's what makes me laugh. Some commentators act like they're winning the argument because they've spent 10 minutes talking about Harry and Meghan's lifestyle. No, you've just spent 10 minutes avoiding the point. Those are two completely different things. If you're convinced Harry and Meghan got it wrong, then explain why. Show people your reasoning. Have the conversation. But don't keep running laps around the subject like you're doing cardio, because every time the topic changes, viewers are left asking the same question. Hang on, why didn't anybody actually answer it? That's what sticks with people. Not the palm trees, not the house, not the postcode. The silence, the dodge, the constant change of subject. And I think that's why so many ordinary people have become skeptical. They know what it looks like when somebody is comfortable having a conversation. They also know what it looks like when somebody is doing everything possible to avoid one. At the end of the day, this isn't about winning an argument on television. It's about honesty. If Harry and Meghan raised a difficult issue, then meet that issue head on. Don't hide behind Montecito. Don't hide behind titles. Don't hide behind property prices. Because when the answer is always another distraction, people stop paying attention to the distraction, and they start wondering why the original question makes everyone so nervous.
You know what really gets me? The rules seem to change depending on who's being talked about, and people notice. Harry and Meghan buy a house with money they've earned themselves. Suddenly, it's breaking news. Why is the house so big? Why did they choose Montecito? Look at how much they spent. Hold on a second. Since when did newspapers become everybody's bank manager? Last time I checked, if you work hard, earn your own money, and decide to buy a home, that's your business. Nobody knocks on your door asking for a full financial presentation. Nobody says, "Excuse me, can we see your receipts?" That's not how life works. But somehow, when it's Harry and Meghan, every private decision becomes a public trial. Now here's where things start looking funny. The same people who can spend hours discussing Harry and Meghan's private spending suddenly become very quiet when questions are asked about taxpayer money connected to the monarchy. It's like somebody hit the mute button. Where's all that energy now? Where are the long debates? Where are the dramatic headlines? Where's the outrage? Funny how it disappears. See, regular people don't expect perfection. What they do expect is fairness. If you're going to inspect one person's wallet with a microscope, then keep that same energy for everybody else. Don't bring one ruler for Harry and Meghan and a completely different ruler for everyone inside the institution. Because once people spot that, they can't unsee it. Imagine a football referee giving one team a yellow card for every tiny foul, while the other team can do whatever they want without hearing a whistle. How long before the fans start shouting? Exactly. People don't mind rules, people mind different rules. That's the difference. And I think that's why more and more people are asking questions. Not because Harry and Meghan are perfect, nobody's perfect, but because fairness shouldn't depend on whose name is in the headline. Either we're all playing by the same rulebook, or let's stop pretending there even is one. That's what chips away at trust. Not disagreement, not debate, the feeling that some people are judged under a floodlight while others get to stand comfortably in the shadows. At the end of the day, institutions don't earn respect by asking people to trust them. They earn respect by showing everyone they're willing to play fair. And if the standards only seem to apply when Harry and Meghan are involved, don't be surprised when ordinary people start asking some very uncomfortable questions.
Squaddies, at the heart of this whole story is one question. What would you do? Seriously, if you honestly believed your husband, your wife, or your children are being treated unfairly, would you sit there and smile for the cameras, or would you do something about it? Because that's the decision Harry says he faced, and whether trolls like it or not, one thing is crystal clear. He picked his family. Not the headlines, not the palace, his family. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Some people act like Harry committed the biggest crime in history by putting his wife and kids first. Think about that for a second. Since when did protecting your family become controversial? Where I come from, that's called being a husband. That's called being a father. That's called handling your business. Regular people understand that. If your workplace was making life miserable for your family, most people wouldn't say, stay there because it looks good. They'd say, take care of your home first. Because jobs come and go. Titles come and go. Public approval comes and goes. But your family, that's forever. And I honestly think that's the part some critics still can't get over. It's not just that Harry stepped away, it's that he refused to choose the institution over the people he loves. That flipped the script. For generations, the expectations seemed to be that the institution came first, always. Harry basically said, no, my wife and my children come first. That rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and ever since then it feels like every move he makes gets viewed through that same lens. If he speaks, he's attacked. If he stays quiet, he's attacked. If he supports Meghan, he's blamed. If he smiles, somebody says he's sending a message. The man can't even breathe without someone writing a headline. It's almost like some people wanted him to leave Meghan standing on her own, but he didn't and will never. He stood beside her. And let's be honest, most people watching this aren't princes. They're husbands, they're wives, they're parents, they're ordinary people trying to hold their families together. That's why so many understand Harry's decision, because loyalty starts at home, not in a press office, not in a palace, at home. At the end of the day, history will argue about interviews, books, and royal drama, but one thing nobody can take away from Harry is this. When he believed his family needed him, he made his choice. Don't act surprised that a husband chose his wife, or that a father chose his children. For millions of ordinary people, that isn't shocking. That's exactly what they'd hope any decent man would do. When you strip away all the royal drama, all the headlines, all the TV debates, this conversation is about something much bigger. It's about accountability.
Because here's the thing. People can handle the truth. People can even handle bad news. What drives people crazy is when they feel like they're being taken for a ride. You ask a simple question, nobody answers it. You ask another question, somebody changes the subject. You ask again, suddenly everyone's talking about something completely different. After a while, you're sitting there thinking, does anybody actually want to deal with the issue? That's where we are. This stopped being just a Harry and Meghan story a long time ago. Now it's about trust, and trust is hard to earn, but it's very easy to lose. Think about your own life. If your boss kept dodging every difficult question at work, how long would you believe them? If your local politician answered every serious question with a joke or a distraction, would you clap? Or would you start asking even more questions? Exactly. People aren't stupid. They can smell a dodge from a mile away, and once they catch it, they don't forget it. That's why so many people are looking at this whole situation differently now. The point is that people expect the same rules to apply to everybody. Fair is fair. Either explain your position, or don't be surprised when people start filling in the blanks themselves. Because silence creates questions, avoidance creates suspicion, and constant deflection makes people wonder what they're so afraid of discussing. That's just human nature. You don't build confidence by pretending uncomfortable conversations don't exist. You build confidence by facing them, head on. No smoke, no mirrors, no magic tricks. And here's the irony. Every time critics try to shut down these conversations by changing the subject, they actually make more people curious. People start asking, hang on, why is this so difficult to answer? That's how trust starts slipping away. Not because someone asked a tough question, but because nobody wanted to deal with it. So maybe the biggest lesson here isn't even about Harry and Meghan anymore. It's about what every institution should understand. Respect isn't automatic. It isn't inherited. It isn't guaranteed because you've been around for a long time. You earn it every single day. Through honesty, through fairness, through accountability. And if the strongest response to difficult questions is to dodge them, change the subject, or hope people stop asking, then maybe the real question isn't about Harry and Meghan anymore. Maybe the real question is, what does that say about the institution itself? Alright, squaddies, that's it for today's Royal Madness. If they spent half as much time answering the questions as they do changing the subject, we'd all be out of a job. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like button, share it everywhere, subscribe if you're new, and become a channel member to support the family. I'm your host Miles, reminding the Royal Rota, you can dodge the question, but the internet always keeps the receipts. God bless you all, stay safe, have an amazing day, and I'll catch you in the next episode.